my name is Jennifer McKenzie, K12 District Teacher Librarian in Siuslaw School District out in Florence, Oregon.
And I am Amy Page. I'm the Eugene School District 4J District Librarian in Eugene.
Yeah, and welcome to the OASL Webinar series. We are supporting Region 3, and we're actually doing a presentation that we shared last year about virtual field trips, and our intent is to really discuss how we've modified what we were doing and adapted to suit this school year. And before we dive right into that, we are hosting, again, OASL is hosting, each region is taking turns hosting our monthly webinars. So you have all the dates and times for all of the upcoming webinars. And in the slides, you can click on my link to register. Plus, you'll be seeing information for all those coming through the listserv. So just stay tuned for more information. All right, so we were going to go over, here's our game plan. So what are virtual field trips? How can they be service learning opportunities for your learning community? We'll really focus on what we're doing this year versus what we did last year. Everyone always wants to ask questions or has questions about the logistics and the nitty-gritty of making it happen. And then we'll share some global resources at the end. All right. And Amy, you just stop me if you need to.
Yeah, you're good. Go.
All right. Well, we already introduced ourselves, but I think one really beautiful thing about our working relationship is that I'm out on the coast with a tiny school district of 2,000. And then Amy is coming from this huge district. So it's kind of fun to see how we're both managing virtual field trips because they look different in our different learning communities. Do you want to add to that, Amy? How many schools do you actually have? How many libraries are you in charge of?
Yeah, so we have 4 teacher librarians in the high schools. So I kind of just team with them, but they take care of their own spaces. But our middle and high school or elementary schools don't have people in them. Most of them don't. We have probably about a third that have somebody, not even that have somebody in there all the time. And the rest are just like hit or miss, whether they have anybody in there. So there's 20 elementary and 8 middle schools. And yeah, so I try to support them the best that I can. So,
yeah, and last year, like the virtual field trips were hugely popular in both Siuslaw and Eugene, but you had anywhere, like you're having 300 kids hop on every week to join you, and a lot of them were elementary aged kiddos, right?
Yeah, depending. And it kind of dwindled off, and a lot, once we went hybrid, it was definitely not that many, but I've noticed that teachers really relied on the recordings a lot. So, and we'll talk more about that as we move on today too.
Kind of like a natural transition into doing the recorded this year. So
yeah.
Why we started the virtual field trips last year. So I moved in the middle of the pandemic. Last year was my first year as the district teacher librarian in Siuslaw. And before I even started work in August, when I was meeting school board members and parents and people in the community and talking to students virtually, I was like, what? So I could see all of the curricular gaps that existed because Siuslaw hasn't had a certified teacher librarian in about 20 years. And so I was like, I can see what holes curriculum wise I need to fill, but what are you wanting? And the number one thing everybody said was connections, because we were still in distance learning and everyone felt disconnected. And so I was like, well, virtual field trips are really cool. And we have all these fabulous, like free Skype in the classroom resources before they were canceled. But we're sometimes strangely under-resourced out in Siuslaw, and like no one had Microsoft Office products. So no one could use Skype in the classroom. So that kind of led to creating, I'm like, well, I'm just going to go out on my own with my cell phone and a selfie stick and come up with my own local version of virtual field trips. And it kind of grew from there. They do support all of our library standards. I truly believe that they lay the groundwork for classroom collaborations and true, authentic community service learning projects. And then cats. We started, both Amy and I started at our local humane societies, and we return back to our humane societies frequently. And whether you're doing a live visit or a recorded visit, everyone loves it when we go and read with the animals at the Humane Society. It's a beautiful relationship with our humane societies. Do you want to say anything about the Humane Society relationship, Amy?
Yeah, they love it. Not only does our audience love it, but the Humane Society loves it. Because when we visit, they get more adoptions, and they just really love, because they also miss, they're still not allowed in our community to go back out to schools. So the director there, loves it when we come. So it's a great relationship.
It's such a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talked about our library standards, and the way we set these up last year, the virtual field trips hit all of our priority standards. So every single trip, we would do a read aloud at the end, and Siuslaw uses AR. So, kids could listen to the read aloud and take an AR test. In terms of information literacy, we're literally co-creating primary sources with our community partners. And so we would go out, even when we were doing the live trips, we still recorded them so people could watch them after the fact. And then I have a YouTube channel, so they all live on that. And then we were adding those resources also to our Destiny Discover platforms. So the trips could be a research resource in the future. And we are teaching everyone to be good digital citizens, just by virtue of doing the live Google Meets with our community partners, and then also teaching our community partners. Again, I'm thinking back to last year, going around town and teaching our community members and business owners how to use technology to connect with our students. Like, how powerful is that? And what a great community service. And then our community partners began to use the language of digital citizenship, which I really loved. So that I kind of spoke to the tech integration there as well. All right. So one thing I do want to say about service learning is service learning has been one of my passions. I have been teaching for about 20 years, and I've worked on some really rad service learning projects in my career. And really, service learning, I used to be an English teacher, right? So we always need our students to demonstrate their reading, writing, speaking, and listening and language skills. And what better way to do that than to link students up with an actual community organization that has a need. And especially when you're thinking of English language arts skills, it was like, well, everyone always needs posters created or pamphlets written or presentation materials produced, and students are so capable of doing that. And these are just a couple of examples of some of the really rad projects I worked on. I lived in a community that flooded, and the whole town was shut down for 2 weeks, and our kids were out on the sandbagging line. And then my students created flood preparedness pamphlets for the city of West Fargo that were distributed out. Like, how cool is that? I also have done a lot of work with the Veterans History Project, and did a big project when I worked at a university where we were specifically trying to find female soldiers. And anyway, we contributed to the Library of Congress Veterans History Project, and then brought everyone together on campus for a really cool presentation and documentary showing. And then I mimicked the style of the Veterans History Project for a middle school that I worked at. We had a huge refugee New American population in our school district and in our community. And so we did this really beautiful oral history project with the students and community members around town. So anyway, just a couple of examples of service learning projects, which I do believe the virtual field trips can become. But it's like you're making the initial contact with the community partners through the trips, and they can lead into those service learning projects. So I have the next couple of slides, and then Amy will talk about hers. These are all the trips that we did last year. So we started in October. We did one just about every week. And I just love to list all of them because you can see all the different community connections and the variations of community connections that we made. I mean, we're at the Humane Society, we're down at local businesses. Water Lily Studio Florence is like a rock shop / jewelry store. And anytime we would visit one of these spaces, we would drive local dollars to the business. Like we would do a virtual field trip at Water Lily Studios, and then all the kids would go down there and, you know, check out the store. And anyway, it was beautiful. So for anything with animals, and I know Amy's going to probably talk about that, but going out to, where was it? C&M Stables, anytime we were in nature or with animals was always popular. KXCR Community Radio, we're actually, because of that initial virtual field trip, we're now doing a podcasting collab between the high school and the radio station, which emerged because of the virtual field trips. I mean, visiting the community college, our Ocean Adventures with Carrie Newell was a collab between Eugene and Siuslaw, and that one was huge. Just lots of really awesome stuff. And then this year, and we're going to talk about some of the changes that we were making this year compared to last year, but here are the trips that Siuslaw has done so far. So again, we started back at the Humane Society, and fun fact, last year, our first trip was at the Humane Society, and I walked out the door with 2 cats. And then this year, our first trip was with the Humane Society, and I walked out the door with a puppy. So yeah, and one really cool thing, a couple of these 2 trips right here, or 3 of them actually, we've started touring the classes and courses inside of our school district. Because we know one of the best ways to become a better teacher is to watch other teachers, right? And we don't always get out of our classrooms to go and do that. So it's like, why don't we start touring our own programs and classes in Siuslaw? So that's kind of been a new shift this year. Oh, and now I'm on the additions to this year for Siuslaw at least, and then I'll turn it over to Amy. So I always do a needs assessment during in-service week of all staff. And most staff indicated they preferred the recorded virtual field trips. That way they could embed them into class whenever they needed or wanted to. And so, but teachers can still request live trips if they would like. And then I received a Fulbright Award this school year, super huge honor. And so my Fulbright is actually shifting my focus a little bit of my virtual field trip slightly. And the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program is sponsored by the United States Department of Education. And really the whole purpose of all of the Fulbright programs is to build collaborative relationships between educators across the globe, right? And a lot of that work is focused on the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. There's a snapshot of that, and this is a clickable link, but they are things like, the 17 goals is the UN saying every human being on the face of this planet deserves these 17 things. And it's our goal by the year 2030 to make this happen. And it's like no poverty, right? No one should go hungry. Everyone deserves, number 4 is quality education, gender equality. You know, climate action is number 13. So with that in mind, starting in January, I'm going to try to frame month by month around one of the UN goals. So yeah, stay tuned for more there. And then another way that I'm restructuring my trips this year, I already kind of talked about doing a district trips, but my intent is each month to do a district trip, a community trip, a micro trip. So last year we did our first micro, like virtual field trip under the microscope. So I went out and collected samples from the community, and then you just get a little adapter so you can record what you're seeing in a microscope. And we looked at the places we physically visited, the little samples underneath the microscope, and that was the virtual field trip. And it was so much fun. And then I'm trying to embed, again, the whole point of my Fulbright is to start branching outside of Siuslaw and embed more global trips. So my goal is to do one of each of those each month. And then I am trying to also do monthly take action projects. So at least once a month, have one of the district committee micro or global trips try to help out an organization and do an action project that also may align with the makerspace project. I know that's a lot to try to but I'm trying to take all the things that I'm doing and I'm just trying to marry all of the different things because it's just more logical and more meaningful. And here's an example of a take action project, right? So in October, our very first trip was a community trip with the Humane Society. And then I think like the next week or so after that, we were celebrating Digital Citizenship Week across the district. And so I was working with our elementary kiddos, teaching them to use social media mindfully. And obviously they don't have social media accounts yet. So we were doing these pretend social media posts. But then I took a snapshot of their Instagrams and I posted it on my Instagram to celebrate the Humane Society. And then I also took these little sheets over to the Humane Society and they hang them on the little cages and, you know, put them around. And they actually help get pets adopted, right? Like that would make me want to check out a cage if it had a little tiny kid drawing Instagram post on it. All right, so Amy, I'll turn it over to you and your trips.
Yeah, okay. So isn't Jen awesome? I love what she's doing. So I created a slide deck basically where I add the recordings to my field trips and I embed like the links to the field trips, actually take them directly to a Destiny collection because I really want them to see the other resources that I've curated for them to support whatever the topic is that I've done. So when we visited the Capitol, at the Oregon State Capitol, I created a bunch of other resources that they might want to use in their classroom because I know a lot of the 5th grades usually go and visit the Capitol. So I curate books that they might want, but websites and videos and things like that to go along and support that. So all of the links in here will take them directly to the curated collection of resources. And then I've just been adding that. So these are some from last year, but I just wanted them to have them all in one deck. So this year I just created a big slide that says, you know, here's what we're doing this year. And in all honesty, I haven't had that much time because being pulled out of my job to do some subbing. So I'm hoping to get more of that going. But I've done like just 3 Humane Society, and we did what Jen did, and we visited a CTE class. So this guy at our Churchill High School has done some amazing stuff with his engineering and design class. So we visited that. And yeah, and this is some of the stuff that we did last year. And again, the animals are super popular. And we made a point to bring the book and read aloud on site, which especially with animals can be super fun. Freezing at times, but also super fun. And, you know, when I went to this one particular farm called, it was like Furry Feathered Friends or something like that. And they also had goats and alpacas and super friendly, fun times, but they create some awesome opportunities for bloopers too, which kids love. And
let's check out a blooper right now, Amy.
Yeah, go for it.
So this was alpacas. Hold on 1 second.
Play? This is no time for playing, young duck. This is no time for games. No. Well, hello, excuse me. This is no time for playing. For games, young goose. And let's make the game. Hello.
Super friendly alpacas. I think they're alpacas. I get my alpacas and llamas mixed up. Forgive me for my ignorance on that, but super fun times. It's just, it's awesome to get out in the community and engage, and the kids really loved it. And I really liked doing live trips. I do miss that because we had the opportunity to connect with kids, and they were super sweet with their questions that would be asked. So it was super fun. But this year, along with Jen, it's definitely harder. Like, we can't capture that live audience in the same sense. I do have some teachers that have reached out to me and asked, particularly if I can go to specific places that they wanted to do. So we're trying to coordinate sometimes when I could actually go there and connect with their class live to do that. But for now, I've just done the live or the recordings, and which is one less piece. It's a little bit easier to just go out there and not have to worry about connectivity, because we've had our fair share of that, which we'll talk about the tools that we used and things that worked and didn't work for us. But definitely fun to be able to support them. And it is like, when I do advertise that I am doing a field trip, teachers are like, hey, I haven't seen it posted yet. And there's a little bit of time on the back end when you have to record and edit some things to fit it all together. Totally worth it. It's fun. Yeah.
All right, so now we're talking about the difference between the live versus the recorded. As we just said, we've been doing mostly recorded trips this year. They're a little easier, depending. If you don't have to edit, they can be easier. I just had a request. I just got a request from a class. It's so cute. The elementary teachers, many of them last year, they'd be like, hey, can we send you on location to X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, yeah, send me on location. So I just got another request to be sent on location. I feel like it was back to the fire department again. So, I mean, like, what a fabulous resource that we can provide teachers is that if they don't have the brain space or the time to somehow connect their class meaningfully to a community partner, we can just swoop in and do it, you know, help them, assist them with that. So for the live trips, well, should we just go through our jam about how we do the live anyway, Amy?
Yeah.
I mean, the basic supplies, I always love to just show people because I think I still have it in my drawer. Yes, for the live trips, we tried everything under the sun, I feel like last year, and finally landed on, that's why this is called cell phone and a selfie stick virtual field trip, because this is all you need right here, and a Wi-Fi connection, right? And you also need, like the slide says, you do need a buddy. Actually, I think we are getting to that slide in just a second, but basic supplies, you're going on site, you are meeting with a community partner, and it's kind of like a walk and talk. At least that's how I conducted mine. Mm-hmm. Do you want to add to that and then speak to the recorded pieces?
Yeah. So when you're live, you definitely want to make sure that you have a good Wi-Fi connection. One thing that I always did as well, because sometimes my phone wasn't enough, so I had a Wi-Fi hotspot that could handle the larger Zoom as well. And then when we transitioned, you know, when we do some recorded, sometimes the recording almost ended up to be more editing pieces, because you're like, oh, I can cut here and, you know, we'll walk over here. So you have to kind of piece it all together. But it's a little bit easier because you're not navigating with that live piece. And especially if you have to walk a ways between some, you know, I've visited like the waste management site, we had to walk a ways between things. So having conversations and getting that, you know, in place. And I would like to say too, that with the live version, because both Jen and I post ours online, is that we're dealing with a younger audience. And so we need to make sure that no kids are a part of that. And so that was some of the editing too. If some of the settings weren't right and you got kid faces in there, you had to work to delete those out just to make sure it was safe for our kiddos, that we weren't putting them on there without permission. But yeah, so
out in Siuslaw, we still use Google Meet, and then you were using Zoom. So there are some differences between the two platforms as well, but that's how we were meeting live, was either on a Google Meet a Google Meet on a cell phone or a Zoom on a cell phone. All right, staffing, yeah. So in addition to the simplistic supplies and your community partner, you do need a buddy. If you're doing it live, because you need someone on the back end controlling the Google Meet or the Zoom, managing the online class for you. So I'm in Siuslaw and I have 3 libraries and 3 library assistants. So they were all trained to be that person and kind of took turns depending on their schedule. So it was nice to have 3 people trained in case, someone was out or someone was, facilitating a class or a book checkout visit or whatever. And whether you were on Zoom or Google Meet, they would, like I said, manage the virtual class essentially. Is there anything else you want to say about that and your district communications person?
Yeah, no, we also had, so I had my Zoom buddy and she was pretty consistent most of the time, which was super helpful because we had some, I don't know, there's all kinds of features that you have to turn off because kids will find it if you're not managing those settings well. We definitely had some Zoom meetings or field trips where people are drawing on our screens. So managing those settings was super important. And then I did have somebody from our district, we have a communications team, and she would send out sometimes just like, I want everybody to know. So she would send a photographer, and she would help me send out communication and share the field trip with people. So that was super helpful.
Well, you said last year you were her like pick me up, like
yes,
we need a positive news story where the district needs a pick me up. Amy, where are you going this week? Yeah.
Sweet. It was fun.
All right, technology and Wi-Fi, what you see on the screen is what we used. This is my favorite selfie stick, and every single resource we've shown you, plus all the slides, are in the Padlet. Okay, so there are Amazon links to all the things. But I carry this with me everywhere I go. I have one at home, I have one in my bag, I have one in my office. It's the best because it's bendy and you can I've attached it to a tree limb before and had this hanging off the tree recording. Or it's really good for the Humane Society on the floor or whatever you're doing, hanging out with the animals. Also, last year when we were doing our live trips, I always had to pack my rain gear because I'm out on the coast and I would get drenched. And we never canceled, not once. I did our waste treatment plant live tour in the middle of the most insane rainstorm that we had of all year last year. And I was up on top, we even went up on the ladders to look at stuff, and I got drenched, but I had my rain gear. Let's see, you talked about the hotspot. Also out on the coast, we always did a tech check in advance because we are super Wi-Fi challenged out here. And a lot of the places that we would go did not have Wi-Fi. So then, I don't know if we've talked about this yet, Amy, but let's say, so for example, one of the spots that did not have Wi-Fi was our Coast Guard trip. So I went out and did a pre-recorded trip, about 10 minutes worth of film, but then we would still go back and show up live, right? So we'd find maybe we couldn't be down on the dock at the boat live because there was no Wi-Fi down there. So we would, find a spot where you did have Wi-Fi, still show up so the kids could talk to the community partner. And it would just be we'd get on, we'd introduce, we'd then play the video, the 10-15 minute video, and then cut back to live so kids could do question and answer with the community partner at the end.
And sometimes I would just invite too, if it didn't work for me to get back down there, I would invite the community partner to just join the Zoom, give them kind of an estimated time so they didn't have to sit through the whole recording. Most of them wanted to see how it turned out. And then they would just be a part of the Zoom and kids could answer their questions too. So that's another option.
Yeah. I don't know, am I missing any other tech?
I don't think so. I think you're good.
Cell phone and a selfie stick. All right, advertising social media. This is something that I feel like I need to up my game this year, Amy. Last year was actually one of my, what is it, our PPG? It was my professional practice goal to use social media at least 3 times a week to advertise library services. And that was such a great goal to establish because I mean, I feel like I did a 180 with my library social media game. I'm an introvert. I don't always like putting myself out there, but we have to. Like running a library is like running a business, and we have to be present on social media. This year, because I don't have that goal, I haven't been posting as much as I should be. So definitely make sure that you're utilizing social media to advertise your trips. So I have the social medias that I have for Siuslaw are a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, a TikTok, a YouTube, a library website, and I cross post. So I'll do the same content and just blast it out on all forms of social media. What did I miss, and what else did you do in Eugene, Amy?
Yeah, no, I did the same. And this year I felt like I haven't been at all good at it. But yeah, and definitely like just using like Jen and I both use Canva to create our little Instagram posts that also work on Facebook. So that's a really like, I'm not creative. So it totally helps me look like I kind of have some sort of skill. They're still lacking and I have plenty to learn, but it really helps a lot to use that tool if you haven't used it with social media posts. Yeah. That's the only other thing I would add there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and Siuslaw does not have Canvas, the learning management system Canvas. So I know that is a super useful way that a lot of librarians across the state get their information out to full total populations. So if you have Canvas, that would be awesome to use. And then I love recommendations from last year's slides. Play the long game. So last year, I was being very mindful about, we talked about this a lot, Amy. We're like, okay, this is a really good thing that we've got going on. How are we going to ensure that this lives on next year when students are back in the building? So I was being really mindful last year about the staffing. Like you do need, if you're doing a live trip, you need a person on the back end controlling the Google Meet or the Zoom. But that could be the classroom teacher that you're collaborating with if your library assistant is busy. So, and now this year when I'm thinking about the long game, I'm like, you know, really the virtual field trip started out as programming last year. And my intent is to move them to meaningful service learning projects. So definitely continue anytime you can collaborate with a community partner or even a partner inside of your school district, it's worth it. And my brain keeps just going to like, I'm structuring my trips month by month a little differently. Like I feel like I'm structuring things more this year and trying to squeeze more meaning out of everything that we're doing. And I also feel like there's something that I plan on continuing for the foreseeable future because there's so much value in them. Just the fact that we're co-creating primary text alone is like worth it in my mind. I mean, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And another way that I think about it is, so if it takes me roughly 1 hour to do a trip, like if I'm going out, even if it's recorded, I'm showing up with a community partner, we're doing a walk and talk, I do everything on my phone. I splice together my movie. Most often, if I have time to sit down immediately when I get back to my office for my trip, I'll create that movie right on the spot, you know, and I've gotten so fast at it that it doesn't take too long. I just lost my train of thought. What was I just saying?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I know what I was saying. Okay, so I was trying to guesstimate this year. I'm like, this year, one trip probably takes about an hour And it could take an hour if I was super efficient. It might take closer to an hour and a half, all things said and done, video spliced together, uploaded onto YouTube, link put on my slides and sent out to my learning community. Like an hour and a half. And this year I'm reaching with every trip, like our Halloween trip had like close to 200 views. We did like a local haunted house thing. Most trips have about 30 views. And again, I'm in a learning community of under 2,000. And oftentimes now 1 view is a teacher hitting play for a class of, 30 students. So it's hard to gauge how many people are watching this year, but I know they're watching. And in my mind, putting one hour or 1.5 hours into a trip is worth it, even if it's just for one class of students. Like that's how I see it. So I feel like there's so much value in them. It's something that I'm personally invested in and intrigued by. And it's just something that I want to keep growing and continuing. So.
And they're fun. It's fun to get out and meet your community, and your learning community will really appreciate it too. So they're fun and totally worth the time.
Yeah, and so we had spoken a little bit about how we're adding all of our content to Destiny. Like how cool is that you can co-create a primary text and then add it to your library catalog. And this, do you remember when the pandemic first hit? None of the everyone was just, sad because the seniors didn't get their typical graduation as they, historically got. And then all of these senior pictures started floating around the internet. Well, that's one of my senior pictures that I took with my cat, and I didn't even remember taking my cat to the photographer for one of my senior pictures, and it was not easy. That is Boots. She is a Siamese kitty, and she was not easy to transport. And thinking back to that senior picture session, it was very interesting. Long story long, if you are interested in virtual field trips, start with your local Humane Society. Cats rule the internet, okay? My husband, about this picture, he had never seen this picture. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you took a picture with your cat. That was before cats ruled the internet. So you working with the Humane Society is such a natural fit for library folks. I feel like we really need to do a statewide, long-standing collaborative teaming between OASL and the Oregon State Humane Society. I don't know, it just seems so natural. What else do you want to add? And
it's an easy place to start. Like they will just lead the way, and it's super engaging. It's a great hook, especially if you start with some fun animals, and it's super appreciated too. So it's a really great first step to get out there.
Yeah, it's a win-win. I don't know if we mentioned it, but both Amy and I have standing appointments with our Humane Society. So we can literally, even though you have to, I don't know, is Eugene's where you still have to do a reservation or book an appointment. Even though we're booking appointments, they let us in, like pop in at any point in time, any day of the week, any hour to get some footage or to do a live trip even. Because it's when we're helping adopt out cats.
Right.
And in return, another reason why the Humane Society was my first go-to last year was just because of like social emotional learning and pandemic trauma and the healing impact of animal therapy. And I was like, if we can't, most school districts now have a lot of regulations, like it's hard to get a service dog on campus these days. And I was like, if we can't bring in therapy service animals to the schools in person, then we're going to do it virtually. And that's really another reason why I started with the Humane Society last year.
Yeah. And we have, sorry to interrupt, but we have somebody asking about when we mentioned adding resources to Destiny. So Destiny has a feature in there called collections, and you can add link to websites and videos. And so we both upload the actual recording or link to it because we posted on YouTube. So you can link to it so they can access your recording of your virtual field trip. And then you can also add books from your libraries that tie into it, and any other resources that you're finding. So you're basically creating this little digital resource that all tie into whatever topic your destiny or your virtual field trip was about. So, and that's a collection feature and super easy to use.
Yeah, it's like I love Destiny. It's like we have it's like creating your own little library website almost. Yeah. It's very akin to that. Yeah, so just start with the Humane Society. I mean, all you could do all year round would be like weekly or monthly trips to the Humane Society for your virtual field trips. And that would be meaningful and powerful in and of itself. And I glossed over the Insurrection Humane Society slide earlier, but we know that reading physiologically impacts your body, right? For humans and for animals. Like the minute you begin to read to someone, it's like your blood pressure decreases, your breathing slows down. It's a scientifically proven way to calm the body is reading. And it works on animals too. And so last year, the day after the insurrection, we happened to have a Humane Society visit, and my students got to witness on camera me reading to the animals. And like the first animal I read to was a super anxious pit bull that was like kind of circling around. He was a senior pit bull. He had like a rash or a skin condition and was just like really uncomfortable. And by the time I finished reading my book to that pit bull, he was like circled up on my lap wanting pets. And same thing, I walked out into the catio and there was a kitty up in the rafters, like all kind of, nervous, anxious. I began to read. By the time I finished the book, the kitty was in my lap. So it's just so powerful. Link up with your Humane Society. Our local Humane Society is looking for volunteers to read to the animals. They're frantically searching for volunteers to read to the animals on a regular basis. So just start there. And on the Padlet, I did put a whole host of resources from Michelle Carton. She is the teacher librarian from Alaska who inspired me to apply for a Fulbright. Because she received a Fulbright and she does tons of global virtual field trips. So a lot of what Amy and I started last year was local inside of our own community, which is amazing and beautiful in and of itself. And then Michelle's got a lot of resources and connections for you to reach out and work with organizations across the globe. All right. And there's a screenshot of our Padlet. Is there anything that I missed, Amy, or anything that you want to share?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that if you're feeling a little bit on the reserved side of where to go, like just if you need help or want to have extra feedback, reach out to us and we can help build your confidence, because it really is sweet and fun. And again, if you don't have a Humane Society close to you, even going out and finding, like, I know some of you are more remote and might not have that available. So finding a little farm where there's animals is a good place to start. But again, those animals are a fun hook and can be an engaging thing as well. Like I've visited several different farms. Deck Family Farm was awesome. We read with the baby goats there. And so just there's farms all around. So that could be another option for those of you who might not have a Humane Society close to you to start out with. But if you need ideas or support, please reach out. We're happy to help and get you going, because it's fun and it's great, not only for the kids, but I got fed from it too. So yeah.
Me too. All right. Well, thank you, friends, for joining us. And just reach out like Amy said. And we'll say goodbye until next month. Join us next month for our next session with OASL. Let me just pull up the slide real quick. It's going to be Wednesday, December 15th from 12 to 1. It's going to be book talks for all ages, led by Amy Wild and her OASL region. So definitely check that out, and information will be sent out through the OASL listserv. All right. Well,
Thanks.
bye.